got it, man. We got
Love it.
some high energy Ibiza funk
We
trance.
do. Rolling out 2022, man. I love it. That was hilarious. I think some folks hopefully caught that. We're continuing to work on the intro here and everything, but we are live and direct and coming back. We missed a week there.
Live and direct.
Direct. Took off Christmas. I hope everybody is having a great holidays. Hopefully you get a little bit more time to relax and not have a totally regular work schedule this week. That's what I'm hoping for everybody.
That's right. I told myself I was going to hibernate. Little did I know I was going to hibernate into respiratory failure.
Oh, dude.
I've been
Oh,
if it my voice is a little off, pardon me guys, but feeling a lot better now. So I think
good.
that music put me in the right frame of mind. So we're gonna
That's what did it. That's what
that's
did it. Was our cheesy intro.
that's that's the cure, man. There's nothing like
Love it.
cheesy German
House
techno.
music. Yes, exactly. I love it. Well, we don't want to just babble. We got a couple of good subjects, but I think from the last time, I really loved our episode a couple of weeks ago and just talking about contribution. And I'm just going to keep coming back around to that. I think we have some fun stuff to share today and to talk about that can be a contribution. But I also want to say now up front and hopefully will a couple times, like make some comments, put something in Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're seeing this, and let us know, what you think some of the most important topics are that we could contribute to you, especially based on hopefully things that we've talked about before. If you haven't seen us before, go back and check out an episode. And yes, thank you so much, perfectly on cue, to pathforward.net there, and you can check out the main concepts. If you have questions around those, there's some podcast episodes. Those are longer, bigger productions. Next one is coming out very shortly, but this is our kind of week to week doing it live.
That's it, man. Asking the tough questions, and I think
Yeah.
that for all of our listeners out there, just feel free to chime in whenever you like, and what are some of the things that are most important to you? What do you want to
hmm
hear us talk about? What subjects? This is an ongoing dialogue, and so
hmm
it's a great opportunity, I think, for all of us to just to kind of introspect. And I think everyone's sort of in this like New Year's resolution, the end of the year introspection. And I wanted to kind of tie in like what we were
Please.
talking about last week, with a couple weeks ago with contribution. And one of the topics we're going to discuss today is like, uh, appealing businesses appealing to the Gen Z customer base. Um,
Yeah.
and
And you
how
linked that. You linked that in the comments, right? So
I
hopefully
link
we got a link there that I
I
see.
linked it in the comments. A great article that we'll be talking about here, and just kind of linking the idea of contribution and doing right. Like I always say, like
Mhm.
the making money doesn't have to be a zero sum game.
Mm.
It's it can be and should be ideally something that benefits all of us. And
Mhm.
so I think that's what Gen Zers are looking for. Being in the jewelry industry, I've made some strides and transitions, some pretty dramatic transitions from having a brick and mortar store to strictly online, and doing the private jeweler thing where I just meet people one on one or on a Zoom call. And I think it's actually like incredible to think that there's a whole generation of people that are willing to spend their money that don't can care less if you have a fancy schmancy jewelry store full of lights and
Display cases
display
and
cases and
mhm.
hoity-toity salespeople,
Mhm.
and everything, all the baggage that comes with. And granted, there's a lot to say about like the in-person experience, and I'm not
Mhm.
taking anything away from that. What I am saying is that there's a real opportunity to not miss out and to wake up to what's really going on, which is the
Mhm.
people that are, you know, going to be the largest consumer base could care less about brick and mortar stores. We
Yeah,
see
yeah.
that every single year. Christmas being like just the amount of e-commerce sales is skyrocketing, right? And that trend is not going to reverse itself. So I want to go into this article that
Yeah,
that's
I just want to say what you were saying too, to set that scenario for you and for your business at Angelucci Jewelry is like, I mean, that's a fascinating part of us and our whole dialogue and stuff we're going to keep coming back to what we were doing before with Diamonds and Music. It's not, I had said, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, when we kind of relaunched, like, this is not something different. It's just expanding the circle of topics under the path forward. But inside of this umbrella, the circle of topics is Diamonds and Music and Angelucci Jewelry and all the things that we're doing. And I think, it may seem simple or silly, but it's almost like even just being here and being live is like this authentic, genuine connection. And that's what we were just asking from anyone watching to connect and comment with us, is like that's the experience of, rather than, to me, because like you had a brick and mortar. I've been to your stores, for years. It's like, oh, you come in the door and now you're a customer and this is our relationship, versus there seems something very different of like having a dialogue like this, even literally like a Zoom or a live broadcast of, let's connect and deliver like this level of private service almost, or very direct service.
Yeah, and it is not an easy thing, especially if you're used to doing something for many, many years,
Mm.
to re-examine and to look at what you're doing and to transform your business and your life, because we're all used to doing the things that how we're used to doing them. But, like
Yes.
um that's
And
not
that's
that's
for
not
everyone.
that's
Yeah,
for
that's for
everyone.
everyone. I just want to say, like, please, the critical thing here is that this isn't like, oh, William and Pasquale are talking about their businesses. This is about all of business, right? That's where it's a contribution. We can talk most authentically about what we know and what we're doing. And if that's a connection for you, that's great. But that's not the bigger purpose. Is what is business like now? What was it like in 2022 following the pandemic? What's it going to be like in 2023? No matter what business you're in, I don't think you can ignore this thing any longer. I mean, it's in everyone's pocket. It impacts all business. I don't care. I challenge anyone, like, what would be a business that it hasn't or doesn't impact?
Yeah, and it's it's the most expensive, valuable piece of real estate is our cell phones now,
Mm.
and to ignore that is to ignore, you know, reality. Um,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm. Yeah.
and so AJ Roy, who's this awesome jeweler based out of Miami, that's the subject of this article called "The Next Big Customer Base: Gen Z. Who are they? What do they want?" He says that the jewelry industry is 20 years behind. You know, speaking to you know its customer base like
Yeah.
digitally, and so like people there's a it's been a struggle for me too to actually like
Mm.
to be able to establish the trust, because when you meet someone in person, it's one thing, but that's not scalable. Eventually, you can hire staff and all that stuff, but there's I don't know. There's so many changes happening, and I think
Hmm.
it's really it's exciting because customers are allowed to speak directly to the founders of companies, to CEOs, and have access like they've never had access before. And so the power now has gone from like the brand to the consumer, which
Mm.
is incredible. And so it forces us as entrepreneurs and business owners to serve
Yeah.
and to truly be in service. And guess what? It's a lot better business to do that than not.
Yeah,
Um,
and I feel like with jewelry, like what you're getting at, Pasquale, and like what we're talking about is kind of what's next after the initial uses of like putting up pretty pictures on Instagram, right? Or Facebook or whatever social. Like, sure, the jewelry industry might have people figured out like putting up pretty pictures or whatever your product is, right? Like, we're involved in payments. I'm involved in ad tech, like any of that. You can put up the cool, appealing pictures and a bunch of that, but um, yeah, what's like these? What are these tools really for? How do you lose the brick and mortar like you've done and actually serve the next generation deliver service and a customer, like a relationship.
I think it's really about like finding out what people are asking and what people want,
Mm,
and that's through like keyword searching and what are people actually searching for on Google. The 92% of searches are on Google, so that's all we
mm,
have to do is figure out, what are my competitors answering, why are people going to my competitor's website versus mine, and what content, what are they actually talking about in all their mediums, right? The hashtag being the universal language now. So you can't just like have a website and just expect people to show up. You need to answer what the questions that they're asking.
mm-hmm.
I just recently discovered there's a competitor's website that has like almost 200,000 visitors on their site for just one keyword, which is a ring sizing chart. How to properly figure out how to size your own ring, your finger for your jewelry ring purchase. So, it's such
Wow.
a practical thing that like,
Wow.
some of the most basic things like we overlook because we're looking to conquer the world, but we don't understand what's right in front of us. Uh,
Wow.
um,
Literally just for a ring sizer. Like
Ring sizing
literally just
chart.
ring size.
That's the search term is ring sizing
Ah,
chart.
wow.
And so it's absolutely incredible.
It's like something that's basic and useful, right? Like not.
Basic and useful. How do
Mhm,
I X?
mhm,
What is the answer to X, Y,
mhm.
and Z, as opposed to like trying to be highfluent or just look at me.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
people.
Exactly. That's what I want to do. Like bring the ring sizing chart here. Like bring like the level of service like for everyone to figure that out for whatever their business or whatever they're doing that is a contribution. And I think just having this conversation again, I want to say is like, I think that this is a level of contribution, just be talking about this. And the other thing I noticed in that article too. And you had, I mean, just so people know, this was something like we're always chopping it up about some stuff, right? We're always kind of researching and looking at stuff. And this is something that came that we both agreed. Like you shared it with me, and I was like, wow, that's like really interesting. I mean, it's interesting about jewelry, but it's interesting more broadly. And they're saying also like stories are so important. Stories fuel everything we create, is this bolded part of it. And I think that's part of that contribution too, is like something useful and a story and a world that people want to engage with or are compelled by, I guess.
Totally, and identify with, like, do I see myself in that story?
Mm-hmm.
Because if I
Mm-hmm.
don't, then I'm never going to buy that product or service.
Yep.
And as soon as that brand owner achieves that, no matter what size of that demographic or psychographic group it is, like the it's so funny, it's such a hard lesson for me, and I think maybe a lot of entrepreneurs out there, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like the idea that, like, to like not try and talk to everyone out there, to truly
Mm.
understand what that means, to try and communicate and resonate with and connect with just
Mm-hmm.
one person at a time.
Yeah.
Who's that one
Yeah.
person that really like sees what I'm seeing or identifies with whatever I post. And it's not just about like, because I've gone through a lot of reps of like, let me post 8 million times a day, and it's like, no, there's, and I've learned a lot through that, but it's like this process of like getting to a better and better content, with just doing the reps,
Yep.
because it's not
Yep.
easy, man. It's not easy when you're like in a band and you're playing to an audience of zero, or your mom shows up to the gig and
Yeah.
and for 2 years. But it's all about like
Yeah.
how consistent can I be, and how
Mm.
how much can I actually like look within myself and really dig for what's true for me, because there's going to be someone out there that resonates with that, and
Yeah.
and chances are that community of one that you just created is going to now double into two, and then four, and then
Exactly.
eight, and but that doesn't matter. Like, that's the thing
Mm.
that I never got and I never understood, is that, oh, I want to, as soon as I saw the sales like going through the roof. I was like, today California, tomorrow the world, and it's like, and it's fine, like to be ambitious and to like
Yeah.
want to make millions of dollars, but I
It
think that
takes something. It
it
takes something
it's
authentic and something that is a real contribution that is a story that people. I was thinking, I'm kind of inspired maybe to get even more specific. We've been speaking generally, which I like because I want this to allow people who check this episode out or checking this out to think about themselves, their business, whatever they're doing. But I was thinking, maybe we should talk about like what the story is that you're working on for Angelucci Jewelry, and then I might talk about what the story is for a path forward. Really like what we're trying to share, just to kind of go through that right now. Would be like, okay, if people are like, okay, I get that, and what is that? So I mean, I know we've talked a lot about like, I just think you've been working on and developing like love and light, and there's some deeper meanings around that we talked about for Angelucci. Do you want to talk about some of that, and then I'll talk about path forward, or I'm happy to go first, whatever
sure,
works.
real briefly, and I'd love for you to expound on the podcast vision. But
Yeah.
Angelucci literally means angel of light, and so that's my
Mm,
mom's maiden name. And so like
mm,
Venus is the goddess of love and light. And so what am I doing when I sell that couple their engagement ring, or sell that
mm,
person, whoever's buying jewelry is buying it to mark a memory, a moment in their life,
mm,
whether it's for themselves or for their partner or friend, or mom or dad. Or the point is that there's a physical manifestation of this love and light that they're attempting to spread to that
mm,
other person. And
mm,
I see it where people come back, oh, this ring belonged to my grandmother, or I've had this chain since I was 5 years old, and my grandma or grandfather gave it to me, and it's so special to me. And so that energy, that love and light, is goes beyond just the actual physical metal or whatever
yes.
comprises that jewelry piece. It transcends all that. And so that
I,
is
yeah.
my focus.
I
The
can think of
focus.
something that's older like that too. I think I've heard you tell stories that we've come across, like this chain. Did you just say like this chain from my grandfather? Like, say the actual gold of it in ounces is like it's not that valuable a piece, right? If you just like are measuring the gold and the stones, but like to them, like that's not the value for many people. Like that's so cool. The value is like this meaning. This is one of the only things I have left from my grandfather. He wore this.
That's exactly right, man. It's powerful stuff. And
Mm,
it's a testament when you see, like, you serve one generation of clients, and then their sons and daughters come to you, and sometimes we've even had like more than that, three or four generations, where and that's a real honor to be a
mm,
part of, but like, and so that's kind of how I honed it down to love and light,
yeah.
and so that's who I am, and that's what everything is going to stem from. But
Mm. I love that, dude. Love that. And your Italian heritage. I mean, we talked about too the to me that idea of love and light and just sharing what means the most is like there's also this aspect we've talked about, like just Italian and Roman culture and Aphrodite, and like this the goddess of love and light, and like just that energy, um was
That's
possible
right.
there.
It's all like, layers and layers of history, and
Mm,
like the collective consciousness that we have. Like, we tap into that when we recognize these moments in our lives. We tap into who we are, and who we and where we're from, and who we were, because
mm,
it's not, it's absolutely just an incredible, like, amalgamation of layers. I'm talking about pagan religions, and
mm,
now Christianity, or it's still the expression of being a human being, the human design of full self-expression, right? And so if I can achieve what that customer had in mind with that custom design, then absolutely I'm all about that.
yeah. Yeah, dude. I love it, man. I think there's so much there for you and for Angelucci and for your customers, and just like there's so much rich story, like we were saying, just in terms of the love and light people are sharing and what a piece can mean for them, and then even bridging that to your life and to your heritage and everything, that there's a tradition around that, and there's, I mean, literally, like embodied in Aphrodite, there were temples, there were peoples that came before us in are a part of the foundation of Western history, good or bad. It still is a part of the foundation of Western history. And man, that that is like it's just, I always love, like, um what would it have been like, to be in Rome, or to be in one of those like temples, like, and people who they didn't have the same ideas of spirituality. Like, there were people who were like dedicated to, this is the goddess, and like the embodiment in our lives, in our society, of love and light, and that was a regular acknowledgement to some people.
Oh, for sure, man. When you walk into like the Pantheon and you see like the echoes of what was, and the examples of what's left of that,
Mm.
is inside of us, and it's an honor, really, to be part of people's lives, um, and so, yeah, I am a jewelry designer. It
Mm.
took me a long time to come to terms with that. I'm a jewelry designer, and I'm a creative, and I'm a maker, and an artist, and a
Mm.
musician also. And it's it's going to be great to keep unfolding this, brother. Let's hear about Path Forward, bro, because we've
Yeah.
had a incredible ongoing 30-year conversation, you and I, as friends, and
Part
you're
of
up
that,
to a lot
man.
of really cool stuff, man. I want to
Thank you.
delve deep into what's going on in William Beard's
Yeah.
world,
Well,
brother.
I'm just gonna, I mean, we put the website up there. I'm just gonna show, just to start talking about, like, what is it? What is that story? I just feel like there's, you know, I'm also like proud, and I like and took the time to present this information that I wrote on the website. So if you just go to pathforward.net, but it's about exploring what's next. We're talking about that in terms of business and how you connect with people, and informing people of solutions that they can take action on in some of the most challenging parts of our lives and society right now. And I just feel like I've been on this amazing adventure in my life, as a lot of people do. But you can go back to the beginning, first episodes, and I'm happy at points. Some people tell me I should talk more about my life and the things that I've done, in the entertainment business and in tech. And I was fortunate to work at Xbox and Microsoft for 6.5 years. And I also went to federal prison from some real estate transactions, and essentially hacking the Federal Reserve, in all honesty. And it was all a learning experience, and discovered these concepts that I think can really make a difference in people's lives. And there are these five main concepts, and just talking about what is next, and how we are going to change and really solve some of the issues that we're all facing right now. And big ones that come to my mind right now are just, and it's all interlinked. Climate change is upon us. I mean, my God, this winter, like, look at what happened in the last week or so. They're like, once in a generation storm in Buffalo, New York, and this freezing across the country, and flights getting, all messed up. And I see a lot of people who are like, oh my God, this, and then I have another friend who just got COVID, literally this week, again, who had it, and is missing a birthday party of our closest group of friends tomorrow night. And the common thing seems to be like, oh, these things are piled up on each other. I can't believe how much there is. And to me, I'm like, where is the disconnect around this is just the beginning? Like how people are like, oh, I hope this is over. I hope it's over now. And I'm like, don't you see what's happening? And that we're just at the beginning of a series of really serious challenges, not some bullshit, not some fantasy that's in a TV show. Like, we've messed with Mother Nature, and the system and everything that we rely on is wobbling and is changing, and it's changing faster. And we are going through that change, and there's some real possible solutions just to impact climate change that we can take as individuals. But also, I think more right now, like on hand, is about how our political system works, and directly linked to that, how we function as individuals every day online. Like, anyone's watching this online, we're talking about how you outreach. That article, to just bring this full circle that we were talking about, is
Hmm.
about programmatic advertising. That is where I'm focusing my career right now. And all of that, everyone knows, well, the ads that I see, everyone is getting information from me. And the big idea here, if you want just like a taste of what I think could be a huge contribution that I think is connected to all of this, is consumers owning their data and having some control over that, and saying what it is that you're interested in and what it is that you're shopping for, and that being like an act of democracy. See, you, the consumer, you, the citizen, having a say in what it is that your data is going to be used for, you having control and a say in what it is that you want to be advertised and how you want your information controlled. And that's business. And then that relates directly to how we have a say more actively, more directly, in our government and in the biggest issues, which are people are dying in blizzards, and we're not really prepared for this, and the pandemic doesn't stop, and we're not really prepared for this, and the system that we've been using with people representing us, or businesses representing our information for us across social media and search, we have this. And this is a tool that we don't really quite understand, and that's what the path forward. It is about connecting and talking to people who are on the front edge and being
Yes.
pioneers about how do we use this, how do we use these tools, how do we reach Gen Z and tell stories that are a contribution, but how do we do even much more about much bigger issues.
What you said really hit a nerve with me, bro, about
Mm,
like, I think it's about like the path forward for me is like an empowerment of realizing what we have in our hands, and how much power we really have. Like, if you look at every colony and slave master relationship
mhm,
in history, the numbers, the serfs and the peasants, or the slaves, the people that were not in power, were always far outnumbered the people that were in power, but they didn't have the
mhm.
consciousness or political situation. What I'm trying to say is that we are in a digital, like, we're in an era of awakening, uh,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
what that's what I really
Yes.
hear from what you're saying, brother, is like,
Yes.
and what we need to help wake ourselves up and help our
Mm.
neighbors wake up to the power that we literally have in our hands, and
Yep.
8 hours a
Yep.
day, right? I mean,
Yep.
we
And
live
that's
on our
and
phones.
that's kind of arbitrary, but the reality of that is literally this showing exactly where we started. This is a dialogue. Talk to us directly. Use these tools of social media because it's about community and about agreement. It's
Mm.
all just about agreement. What do we agree is the most important? What do we agree should be being done? And how is it that we want to live? And what are some real tangible solutions that we can start to take around that? And every day, one little example, right? And that something is so grandiose is like, look, if if people start, and I start continue having this conversation about each person that is online and is using a phone starting to take more control of their data profile, and how
Mm-hmm.
that's being used, right? Most people in the modern industrial world are trading services called social media network, called largest search engine, right? Called your email, that most people use. You're trading that information passively. You're not active
Mm-hmm. For
in any
sure.
of that. And it's been good. It's been a good, at first, it was a really good exchange. I want a fully working email system that has a slick interface and that works for everyone. The thing that there is to realize, and that I'm getting at in part, the story to tell for a path forward in part, is the value of it being passive is imbalanced now. We're getting ripped off. Right?
For sure.
And we're getting control is taken out of our hand by representatives or companies, and this is everywhere. Everyone's talking about it. The news, we can turn on whatever the news stories are today. The difference is, what are some tangible solutions? How do we go about that? How do we take action? How are we active? um yeah, and I think that, today we're talking about, like, just setting that story up. I want to keep setting that story up, and if you want some of that, and you want to know what some of those answers are, dig in. There are 6 episodes of the podcast that go into an opportunity that you can take and you can learn more about, and show up here, like, share this and show up and make comments, and let's continue this dialogue. um, and I will keep interviewing and bringing on, and we will be interviewing and bringing on people who I think can make a difference, and having a regular conversation about this. It's kind of a live conversation. So
It's wonderful, brother. I love it. I'm so committed to being a stand for you, and I
thanks,
just love,
man.
absolutely love this conversation, and it is so powerful to think what we can accomplish together as
Yeah,
as people coming together and just brainstorming and creating solutions. I always tell my 8-year-old son, like, something happens, like, what is the solution? You got to find the
hmm,
solution. That's the key, man. And we can't do it alone. I
yeah.
think especially
It's
as
not.
males, like, we're taught to figure it out all on our own, and
Mm,
not reach out and not talk to the person next to us. Like, that's got to stop. Like, we have to,
yeah.
just realize that it, these, we have this very small window, right?
Mm,
For, saving our planet, and really coming up with an alternative solution to the zero, the zero sum game of the industrial revolution, and, fossil fuels, and,
yep.
there's so many different things that, if we can break them down into specifics and start talking about them, and I think you present really clear solutions,
Mm,
and I think it'd be really awesome for people to just check it out. I invite all of
mhm.
our viewers just to check out all those episodes, and tell us what you think.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
and I think something that brings this full circle again also is, I find that, like, there's something really interesting culturally going on with these are just terms, right? General terms, because they're quick and they're easy to use to communicate. The millennial generation and Gen Z that we're talking about are, and especially because of the pandemic, are much they're less interested in just earning money and having material wealth, or material, consumed results. Like, we're so tied as in Western
mm,
and an industrialized culture to that being the way we express our value or show our value. I mean, we just went through Christmas for a lot of us, right? And we're at the holidays. Like, they're interested in more value than just what you can buy or what you can earn. They're not as compelled. Like, this whole thing around the economy is like, just having a great job where you pay me the most isn't the greatest value. Like, they know having a community, for instance, having genuine experiences, for instance, it is becoming more and more valuable, especially for these generations. And that's fascinating. So now, how do you do business in that environment? Right? Like with people who are valuing something more, you got to bring more to the table.
Oh, absolutely, because like it's it's just it's funny to think about like how many people are living in vans and retiring or working as digital nomads or this
Mm,
great exodus. Like there is the old formula of work at a job for 40 years and get
yeah.
your pension and retire and white picket fence. Like that is no longer acceptable.
Yep.
And it's actually inspirational for me as a business owner to be able to reach people and just speak authentically and just connect and figure out what it is that they want, because as a 48-year-old, like I may think I know what's going on but there's
Mm,
luckily I have nieces and nephews that are in their 20s that are showing me, what's up. And so it's an opportunity to kind of let go of your ego and to actually like like Miles Davis did that a lot
mm.
with music, and he understood that, yeah, bebop was cool and all that, but then he heard Jimi Hendrix, and it was like, wow, it took music took a whole turn, because of that. So
Yes.
and
Reaching people where they're at, man, I think is
reaching
kind of the
people where they're at and answering the questions that they are asking and being relevant to them, and it's not just being nice to Google. It's actually like not just playing lip service to the idea of like content marketing, really digging deep and practicing that.
yeah,
And
and,
so
and using these tools for what they're capable of. I just think there's so much more that these tools that we are just starting to work with are really capable of, and what we can do with them. And that's what this conversation is. We're going to come back. I mean, I think this is a good kind of note to wrap things up. I mean, we're just going to keep coming back and continuing to have this flavor of the conversation. And it's like you just said it, like music is so important to us. It is something about dropping the ego in service of something more and connection.
that's right, man. No matter how good the individual musicians are, if they're not working together, then the whole thing is going to sound like garbage.
Does. Isn't that
Um,
amazing? Isn't that see, that's like amazing to me, that part of what I'm really talking about is like what I talk about is like the grand architecture. Like
mm,
you can't really make music or compelling music, right? Unless if you're in a group of people, you drop some of that ego and you're in service of something else or the music. Otherwise, you won't have harmony. It won't come together. I mean, now individuals can
mhm,
do that to some degree. We see that. You can create music or sing a song, and play on your
mhm.
own, but still, if we talk to anyone who's doing that, there's an element of surrendering to something that's greater and communicating that in order to really connect. And unless you do that, well, I mean, there's a lot of music out there that nobody really, you know, doesn't connect with a lot of people.
That's right, my brother. Yeah, and there's like I think it. We've talked about this a lot too. Is like being part of that community, like plugs you into the universal, the idea that we're all one, and that
Mhm.
we're all together in on this we're all in this on the same boat, so to speak. And
Yeah,
it's
that's it.
there's interesting statistics. My friend was mentioning that 4 out of 5 suicides are
Mm,
middle-aged men,
mm.
and so like
4 out of 5, somebody said?
yeah, yeah, and people talk about the gentleman who was on the Ellen DeGeneres show. I think his name
Mhm,
was Twitch.
mhm,
He had posted something a day before he took his own life of him dancing, and there's this whole thing about like the way we present ourselves on social media versus
mm.
reality. And I think part of the reason why this Gen Z, culture is starting to migrate away from, the more like, polished platforms onto TikTok is because, they're more genuine and authentic, and so
Yeah,
ultimately, like, people will see through that shit anyway, and it doesn't matter. Like, I empathize and my heart goes out to him and his
mm,
family
for
because
sure.
mental health is something that isn't really, I guess, tangible in a physical way, like a broken arm or
Hmm.
whatever, an amputated arm or something. But it's really something that's I've come to grips with in my own family life, and
Hmm.
it's serious, and it's like to feel like you're in a hole that's not, you can't get out of. So like, you know,
Yeah, and that has to do, I think, what you were saying before too, is just that there's this element of authenticity. Like
uh,
that is it's this less polished versions of why TikTok, and then this deeper level of what we're talking about genuine authenticity and actually connecting with people and actually having connection and a conversation, which is what we want to do here, what we're striving to do here with you, if you're
yeah,
listening,
brother.
you're hearing this, and with each other.
Yeah, I mean, look at I forgot the name of the young man who kind of does this on TikTok. The guy who, if someone does has a DIY hack of like slicing an apple, or I'm not sure his name, but he's one of the biggest TikTok influencers, and he's a young man, I think from Africa. I'm not sure if he was living in Europe, but the point is, he would make fun of these videos of people doing finding a hard solution to an easy problem, and he would just do something easy to solve that, like slicing a piece of bread or
Wow.
slicing an apple or like whatever it was. He made fun of these people who were like being really dramatic with these solutions, and literally went from like being unemployed, broke, to now having millions of followers and all the success that comes with that. But the reason I think that he's a kind of an example of what we're talking about is like he was just himself,
Mm.
and he wasn't trying to be anything else.
Hmm.
It's not that
Yep.
trying to be like we moved to Hollywood. There's this whole LA culture, and there's this whole
Mm.
idea, this whole notion that we need to be someone that we're not in order to gain success,
Mm.
when it's exactly the opposite of that. And
Yes.
like Gary Vee talks about, like, what is success?
Yes.
Success is waking up in the morning, like just being happy, like
Yes.
um and yeah,
Yeah.
we all have to like pay the bills and do well, and I'm not saying that that's not important, but I think what's truly is important for me is to really like look within oneself, and to like just be yourself.
Yeah. Well, those things are merging, right? Like it's there's something we started talking about how you pay the bills. Like there's there's something rich here for us to keep talking about. That's for sure. I think people understand. So, yeah, man, I'm gonna call it. I think that's good for today, unless you got anything else.
I'm good, brother. Yeah, let's keep it rolling. We'll see you all
Yes.
next week. And thank you, Bill, and
Yeah, thank
happy New
you. Thank you
Year's.
all. Yes, happy New Year's to everyone. We will see you in 2023. What a thing
Fel-
to say.
Feliz Año Nuevo, and
See.
bon Capodanno. Hope you
A
all
couple.
have a safe New Year's. And thanks, Bill,
Yes.
for being with me today, my brother.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thank you, man. Thank you for joining and continuing to strive through and making it, man. It feels good every time we do it, and we're getting to this place and coming back around to something I think is important.
Yes, my brother. And that's just gonna just grow and grow and grow.
Yeah. Here we go. It's a
There
new
we go.
year, another revolution.
Fasten your seatbelts, baby.
That's right. All
All
right.
right, my
Thank you,
man.
man. Thanks
Love you,
all.
brother.
Ciao.
Ciao. Ciao.